Hello, this is Frederik Steinmetz for cgtestsplus.com. Today we're going to do the last few bits of finishing touches to the scene, and then we're going to export a lot of maps, depth map and blur map, distance map, stuff like that. You'll see what I mean in a minute, and we're going to head over to After Effects in order to use those maps and also create some more maps in After Effects to do the displacement on the lens. As you can see, I really like maps, and I think at the end of this tutorial you will too, because they're really powerful and they are compatible between every program because they're just black and white information. So no matter if you're using Maya, Blender, After Effects, any software can deal with black and white maps. So let's get started. Has the same mist options as I explained earlier. The mist starts shortly behind the pole, and let me just enable this, and it goes all the way back behind the second pole. And let me just, pressing H, you can hide those objects, and here you see this is where the second pole is, and yeah, that should do it. Should just make sure that it does not go beyond your seafloor plane, because otherwise you'll have a really weird, you'll have a you have your seafloor ending without the mist. So this is pretty big, so I'll just scale this down, and that should do. Okay, you can see here I've added another plane that'll be important later on. Right now it doesn't matter because it'll disappear in the mist. And if I render this now, it looks like this. You can see that the seafloor is fading away nicely. The other pole is already fading out, and yeah, this does look like an underwater scene. So what I'll recommend you to do now is take this, choose some render settings that you like. You may play around with the ambient occlusion. I don't have it on right now. I think it looks a bit nicer if you turn it on. And the lighting is pretty much the same as I showed you in the other one. I just used one sunlight and one hemi to fill in some of the darker areas. And so what I'd recommend you to do now is to render this to make a camera animation. So click on the camera, frame 1, press put it into place, like wherever you want it. Press I to insert a location rotation keyframe. Then go to frame, let's say 100. I use 100 frames. That's however long you want to take to pass the surface, and move all the way through the surface. Maybe even move a little too high. Just make sure you don't clip that that pole over there. Actually, if we unhide our planks here, it's okay to, if you move the timeline and you don't have a keyframe set, Blender will automatically update using the last keyframe. So G to move it across the water surface, I to insert a location rotation keyframe again, and it's always a good idea if you have an animation to overshoot. That means we are going a bit too high, and Shift F to rotate it a bit upwards, and insert a location rotation keyframe again. So if we go through the water, you'll see that the camera goes up a bit too high and then sinks down again, as if the diver sticks his head through the water and then realizes, oh, I'm too high, I'll go back down again. It just adds realism. And the way I animated the water surface in the end is I used this empty, the wave input. In the other one I called it input displace. And what you can do is, if you insert a keyframe here in the first frame, press I and insert a rotation keyframe. Then move to frame, I used frame 11, so 10 frames. You can also press the up arrow for that. Press I and insert a rotation keyframe again. Then Make sure this little arrow is selected, because otherwise you'll get every keyframe that's in your scene, and that's usually pretty bad for the overview. And press AA to select until everything's selected. Press Shift E for extrapolation and say linear extrapolation, and that means it'll keep rotating. It will keep rotating all the way until the end. Well, there is no end. So it'll just keep rotating no matter how long your scene is. It's pretty handy because we don't have to worry. If we want to increase the speed later, just press GY, and you can see I can increase the speed or decrease the speed, and it will rotate at the same speed through the entire animation. Enough about that. Let's check when the camera completely breaks through the surface, and this will be right here, 54. So what we'll do is we'll start our animation at frame 1 and end at frame 54. And yeah, make sure that all your render settings are correct, and render the entire scene. Once we're done with this, we can start to take care of the above water scene, and for this I think it's a good idea to get a background other than the sky dome that I created, because the sky dome is not very pretty. It's just serves as an input for reflection of the water surface. So instead I just used a plane, made it shadeless materials, and I used a texture. It's a picture that I took a while back, and I'm sure you'll find some nice picture with clouds on the internet. And as I said, make it shadeless, make it in the background so it covers your entire camera. And next thing, we'll turn off the mist, because above water we don't have that much mist. And on a clear sunny sky, I mean this is an actual scene from the ocean, and you can see there's no mist going on there. So turn off the mist for that, and let's enable the depth of field. And for this you can actually use two methods. First, you could, that's what I did, you can use an empty, and I'd say underwater my depth of field is not that important because our view is very shallow. The part that gets blurred out by the depth of field is already starting to fade out, so it doesn't make much of a difference. But for the shot above the surface, the water surface looks a lot nicer if you use a depth of field. So if I hide this real quick, I can see I have a couple of empties here. This is my wave input. I'll hide this H, and this is my, I don't know, that's just an empty. Let's hide it, H. This is my depth of field, and you can see once I move the depth of field, you can see this yellow cross moving as well, and that is because the camera has show limits turned on. And also for the depth of field, it has the name of this very empty here, depth of field, and it has to be accordingly. So I can stop showing the mist, and if I want to, I'll just leave it on for now. And if I move the empty around, I can change the focal point of the camera. I'll just leave it halfway through the first pose. I toyed around with this a bit, it gave me a nice result. And let me check what this is, displacement input. I think this is just another name for the empty that I used. And once we're done with that, we can scroll back, actually press Alt-H, we need to see the water surface. And let's scroll back until none of the sky is visible, right here. And remember that number, 26, and fill it in as the starting frame, 26. And then go all the way to the end, which was 100 frames, or 110 frames? 100 frames. Good. Type this in here and render this out as well. I can recommend you to render out image sequences at all times, which would mean you'd choose, instead of a movie codec, you'll choose an image codec. And I prefer PNG because, first of all, if you have an alpha channel, you don't need to worry about whether it's going to be encoded or not. Just check here the RGB alpha. And also the JPEG tends to produce bigger artifacts than the PNG. And it's slightly bigger, but I really don't care about disk space when I'm having 100 frames rendered. You can of course go with TIFF or Targa as well. They're both very nice formats as well, but I'll stick with PNG for now. You might want to check file extensions, where if you use a PNG sequence, because otherwise I had it once that I didn't check the file extensions, and every picture was called test 001, test 002, test 003 without the file extension, so no program could read them. Not even Photoshop, and I couldn't batch rename them. I guess I could have downloaded some program, but I didn't. I just re-rendered. But just keep that in mind, it's annoying if you don't. So let's, what you'll do next is render the series from 26 to 100, and if you want to render the animation, click on this one or press Ctrl F12. Once this is done, we need 2 more render passes, and the first one is going to be a helper for a mask that we'll be creating to transition between the underwater world and the above water world. We could rotoscope it, but if there's an easier way to do it, why not? So let's check. We need to, starting here, 26, same thing, and press Control Tab until you see the nodes. If you don't want to, Control arrows. If you don't see the nodes, just check any window and choose nodes over here. Okay, these nodes, if you press Control Up arrow over a window, with the mouse over any window, it will maximize it. Okay, let's start this from scratch. X, and add output composite, and I like to add a viewer because it's easier to view. Once you click backdrop, whatever is in the viewer will be shown in the background. Okay, press the plus sign. Okay, this is my last rendered image, and what I need now is a converter node, color ramp, and the color ramp can take a Z value and make a grayscale value from it. And we have to check something, and that is our camera is right here, and we can also try guessing, but let's make it precise. The camera is at the location in Y direction. It's minus 8.5, and the closest vertex in Y direction is global, minus 7.6, so it's about 0.8 Blender units apart. And so if we actually we need another node. 1 second. If I maximize this, I can add a new node, add vector map value, and this needs to be between the Z and the map value and the color ramp, because we can now use the distance from the camera, which is the Z, in order to tint or to darken the color of every object that is closer to the camera, and the offset should be about 0.8 Blender units. And I can see that's not enough, so let's just pull this around. Ah, there we go, we're getting something. That's a lot more than I thought. Actually, this is not the best image to use. Let me render another one. Okay, with this one, you can actually see the bottom of my background picture in the background, but that doesn't matter at all, because all we're interested in is a depth map. So let's try changing this to
minus 0.8, and that's still not enough, so let's offset it a little more. The mistake I made earlier was to render a picture where we're not intersecting with the water surface anyways. So you can see as we offset this more and more of the water surface gets black. And this is a map we're going to use in order to blur the part that is in theory touching the camera. The part of the water surface that's touching the camera, of course, will be very blurred, no matter what camera you're using. I guess there might be some special camera, so disregard. Most of the time it will be totally blurred. So this should work well. Let's just connect the image to the compositor image and render this again. And it will also be from the frame 26 to frame 54, same thing as before, the entire passing through the water surface. And of course give them meaningful names, and as I said, I'd recommend to use PNG sequences or TIFF sequences at all time. Okay, this is our blur map for the transition of the water surface. And one final thing we need is a mask, so we don't have to rotoscope. And the easiest way to do this is if I press the numpad to isolate the water surface and press 0 to look through the camera again. And I can actually render this entire water surface in the local view. As long as my mouse is in this local view window, Blender will only render whatever's in the window. If you press F12 while your mouse is over here, it will render the entire scene. So I'll create a new material and make this white. Needs to be white or black, but nothing in between. No transparency, no mirror, just transparency up, and make this shadeless. So this way we'll have a shadeless water surface. Of course, you have to assign the material to the entire water surface. So to do that, just tap into edit mode, make sure everything's selected and press assign. Okay, this is looking okay. Problem is we have the bluish background. Of course we need a black background. If we have the shadeless white plane, we need a black background. So oops, again, mouse over the wrong window, so F12 here. Escape to cancel the render. Still taking quite some time to render, but I guess we'll have to bear through this. If we reduce the subsurface count, we won't get the same results as the actual water surface, and actually this is exactly what we want. So render this pass where just the water is in the picture and it's shadeless white, because this will be our mask helper. So maybe just call this mask helper or something. Again, it needs to be from frame 26 to 54, exactly as long as the camera takes to cross the surface. Now we're actually ready to get into After Effects. So here we are, After Effects, and I have imported the four passes that we rendered: above the water, below the water, the mask, and the surface distant. And I'll drop the above water and underwater into a new comp, and I'll go to frame 26 because that's what I remember is the first frame of the above water, and also the first frame where until we breach the surface, until we get this result here. And of course, if I composite them on top of each other, that's not going to do much good. And actually, Control-Alt-F resizes this to the comp dimensions. And I think the reason why this is so small is because I accidentally rendered the first 1 or 2 frames at half percentage. But that doesn't matter. It'll be fine for this tutorial. So now we'll have to figure out something to mask everything that's that's below the surface from the clip above water. And to do this, that's why we created this mask. Move it over so we can check here, 26. It should be at at frame 26 exactly, and we'll choose Luma Matte. Sorry, that's the wrong. That one, Luma Matte. And now you can see the the above water clip is only where the water surface is, which is perfect. But it also needs to be on top of it. So we're just going to manipulate the mask, select it and press Ctrl-Shift-C to pre-compose it, and call this mask pre-comp. And go into the mask pre-comp and create a new solid. And white solid needs to be white. And let's move it over here so it doesn't start before the mask, otherwise it would get the entire above water image shown. And I can see this image, if you press Ctrl-Shift-Y you can make it comp size, if it's not already. And now let's mask out, that's the rectangle tool, it's this tool over here, mask out everything until the water surface. And the reason this is still working pretty well is because our we only have to draw one rectangle. The jagged part of the water surface is taken care for us by the masks that we rendered. So all you need to do is press M twice, click on the mask path to animate it, and move this keyframe over because that's the starting keyframe, and insert. And now just press V and move down these two handles. And let's do that until the beginning. And double check in between. There's a slight problem, so let's just correct this, no problem. And here we go. With a couple of easy steps, you can mask out the entire above area of the ocean surface. And over here, the mask go down exactly one frame and have the mask fill out the entire screen, so the entire above water is visible. So as you can see now, we perfectly masked out the above water clip.
This has been part 3 of my underwater tutorial. There's going to be one part more in the future, and we're just going to make the displacement map in After Effects using the caustics effect. And until then, this has been Frederik Steinmetz. Thanks for watching.